Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to part 2 of our main topic, which is Freemasonry and other secret societies. In part 1, Minister Ahmed El-Shabazz explained why no Muslim should belong to or join the Freemasons. We really would like to thank you all for watching and supporting our videos. In this day and time, the true teachings of Almighty God Allah, as taught by his last messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, are facing great opposition. We have many hypocrites and false leaders like Mr. Farrakhan and others who are distracting us and confusing the Muslims, which leads to disunity and the weakening of the power of the Muslims. We see opposition coming from the political society, enforcing inclusion and integration into the Western white man's way of life, which is in opposition to freedom, justice, and equality, because it only gives freedom to those who disbelieve and rebel against Almighty God Allah. We see the destruction of morals under the banner of so-called freedom. People are confused, and nowadays many of the Muslims are confused too, because they put another man's word over the messenger's word. Usually, this negative and evil propaganda is spread by those who are involved in Freemasonry. And Brother Ahmed, as you stated in part 1, whenever these Freemasons go to work, black people become the victims.
Freemasonry is racist, period. The messenger said the white Freemasons, even to this day, don't recognize, very few recognize the black Freemasons as their Masonic brothers. I mean, all Satanists hate black people. Even black Satanists hate black people. Okay. So we have a quote here also from Manly P. Hall. He's stated, when the Mason learns the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mysteries of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands. And before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. That's a quote from Manly P. Hall, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, Chapter 4, The Fellowcraft. You see, you hear what he said? The seething energies of Lucifer. And Lucifer is the light bearer. I'm going to show you that America is satanic. There's a statue in New York called the Statue of Liberty. And it has a crown just like the crown of Mithras, the Mithraic crown on his head, right? The 7 rays. Well, that's not a woman, that's a man.
Okay.
The Statue of Liberty is actually a man. Look how strong he is in the face.
Yeah.
Or she is, so-called she is in the face. That's a androgynous statue. That is a statue of Lucifer, the light bearer. That's actually what the Statue of Liberty is, because it was donated by the French Freemason, and that was sent over to North America by the French Freemasons in the late 1800s. They put Lucifer out there holding a torch. He's the light bearer, right? Lucifer Morningstar. You got to remember the founding fathers of North America were not Christians at all. They were Freemasons. They were actually 17th century deists. A deist believed that God created created everything and then left man to his own devices. That goes against biblical and Quranic teachings, doesn't he? That is something that the Freemasons don't believe that God interferes in the affairs of men. That's a lie.
Yes. So these satanic and pagan ideologies are in contradiction to Islam. It makes perfect sense why the messenger of Allah spoke out against the Masons. Nevertheless, many people, white and black, are still joining because their fathers are Freemasons, and they automatically introduce their sons to this secret order.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and during his theology of time, he was talking to the Muslims about the Freemasons. He said, if we bring you the sun, moon, and star, and you laugh at it and criticize it and say you don't want it, and that you would rather have a made square of the devil that is good enough for you. You are only wishing to become recognized by the devil and not by your people. end quote. You talk about that made square as a square of Freemasonry with the G in the middle. All right. So his prediction came true. Unfortunately, he presented the sun, moon, and star, which is freedom, justice, and equality, and the symbol of Islam, our very nature, the nature of man. But many of people here, because, like you said, their fathers were Masons and they grew up in the church and they felt it was tradition. So they made mockery of the religion of Islam or the science of supreme wisdom of Islam. They didn't want the sun, moon, and the star. They wanted the devil's compass and square. Again, the messenger's not talking in glowing terms about Freemasons.
Exactly.
And he just answered the question, why do they join these societies? Because they want to be recognized by the devil. We also have a condemnation of Freemasonry in the 58th chapter of the Holy Quran and the 8th verse. It says, have you not seen those who were forbidden from secret talks or secret councils? Yet they always return to what they were forbidden, conspiring in sin and aggression and disobedience to the messenger, end quote. The people who are Freemasons today in the Nation of Islam, these so-called Muslim followers of the messenger who are Freemasons, they met in secret council to subvert his teachings after his passing. All right. So they met in secret. They were organized in secret to go against the messenger. And when he passed, within 6 months, the Nation of Islam was unrecognizable. And now we find out, see, though they used to condemn it, they were Freemasons all along. Louis Farrakhan gave a speech to the Freemasons in 1981, but 10 years earlier, he had condemned it. And now, 40 years later, he comes out as a full-fledged member of the Freemasons up to the 99th degree. His second in command before he turned on Mr. Professor or Dr. Khalid Muhammad was also a Freemason. All right. Now, if I know, and I'm not the smartest guy on the planet. If I know it's against Islam to be a Mason, how come these fellows didn't know? Or did they? And just ignore it. We find, Richard Burton, not the actor, but the explorer from the 1800s, who was a spy for Queen Victoria. He is on record as stating that the Sufis are the parent organization of Western Freemasonry. See, you have a lot of Muslims in the Sufi orders. That is nothing but spiritual Freemasonry. That's all that is. We have that's another trend that's floating around Islamic circles, and it has been for hundreds of years. But it's Freemasonry. It's a form of magic, manipulation.
Yes, sir. Magic, tricks, and manipulation. This always reminds me of Moses and his rod, and how the magicians of the Pharaoh tried to overcome him. The magic used by the enemies of Allah may appear powerful, but the truth and power of Allah, His supreme wisdom, is so strong that lies and magic have no chance.
Well, you have magicians now. Yeah, and you have magic being practiced in the East. Allah forbids you in the Holy Quran. It tells you to stay away from people who tie knots and blow on them in the Quran. Yeah, that's a form of magic. You're using pharmacy, you're using chemicals, hoodoo, voodoo,
exactly,
pharmaceutica. The pharmacy, the pharmacist is a form of alchemy because you're taking a plant and you're synthesizing it down to a pill. That's alchemy. We just don't call it that today. Yeah, but that's all a part of magic. There's another thing that the Shrine or the Masons do. Have you noticed the Freemasons would try to fuse Christianity and Islam together? We've seen that happen with Wallace Muhammad, Wardeen. We see that with Farrakhan, and we see that with the Shriner organization. It's a mixture of Christianity and Islam. You're taking on mixed instructions. The Freemasons would say it's okay for Muslims to join the Freemasons. It may be okay for the Freemasons, for Muslims or in the Freemasons. All you have to have is belief in a deity to be a Mason. It could be the worship of the devil, Mickey Mouse, Buddha. Masonic America and Masonic England are really Allah's number one enemies. Masonic America has 666, which is in the book of Revelation, the mark of the beast. And this 666 is on the back of the dollar bill. If you have a dollar bill, you'll see the Roman numerals on the great seal on the back of the dollar bill. And you got MDCCLXXVI. And so if you look at that sigil, that's what it is, on the back of the dollar bill, which was first introduced to the public during the President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt's time in office. He was a Shriner Mason, Freemason, as well as his vice president. And that was the first time that both sides of the Great Seal had been presented to the public, showing the pyramid or the all-seeing eye and the pyramid on the back. So if you were to cross out the M, the second C, and the first X on the dollar bill, and you see on the dollar bill where you see the picture of what makes out to be the bricks on the pyramid on the dollar bill, they're active. If you look close enough, there are lines running through those letters that I just mentioned. So there's a line going through the M, the second C, you see a line going through it on the dollar bill itself. The first X there's a line going through it. So when you add up using the Roman numeral converter calculator, and you type in DCLXVI, that equals 666, or the mark of the beast. Now, that is called the Great Seal. The Great Seal, if you were to use Jewish gematria cipher, that would give you the number 422. And guess what else equals 422 using the Jewish gematria cipher? The architect equals 422. Also, the term is Lucifer equals 422. Isn't that something? So they're telling you this Great Seal points to their architect, who they call the great architect, their God, which is Lucifer. And it is Lucifer. And they're telling you that in the numbers. If you take the Great Seal again and you use English gematria, it'll equal 121. And guess what also equals 121 when you use simple English gematria? Antichrist also equals 121. Blood sacrifice also equals 121. So they're telling you that they are the Antichrist nation, and America was built on bloodshed. It was a blood sacrifice, blood magic, as they call it. This is the United States. We also have the other part of the Great Seal, which is the eagle. And you see the eagle on the other side of the dollar bill holding the arrows, and there are 13 arrows in one hand, and he has the leaves in the other claw of the eagle. But look over the head of the eagle. The stars that make out a hexagram over the eagle head on the back of the dollar bill. If you could draw the lines to the points, you'll see that as a Star of David, a Mogan David over the eagle. Well, I have a quote here. As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has itself no character or enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of the Muslim men. And as the said states never entered any war or act of hostility against any Mohammedan nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony between the two countries. And this is a quote from President John Adams. The Treaty of Tripoli was dated June the 10th, 1797. Now, President John Adams was a statesman, diplomat, writer, and one of the founding fathers of the United States. He was the second president of the United States, serving from 1797 to 1801. He clearly states that America was not founded on the Christian religion. It was, according to history, founded upon Freemasonry. And America is a Masonic constitutional republic. I do not know why people call America a democracy. The United States has never been a democracy. America only says she's a Christian nation, but her actions from the beginning of her up to the day shows she is not, nor has she never been, or has never been a Christian nation. Now, if we look at the symbol of the Great Seal on the back of the dollar bill, it is a sign of the Dajjal, or the Antichrist. We also notice that there are 33 Masonic symbols on the whole of the dollar bill. I would not go into that. You can look it up for yourself. But you'll see that the dollar bill has an Egyptian pyramid with an eye in a radiant triangle. If you notice also, that is a left eye, the symbol of the moon. As the Prophet Muhammad pointed out, the jaw left eye would be like a bright shining star. The
Yeah.
Prophet Muhammad, when he was describing the Dajjal, he would say that he said that the Dajjal or the Antichrist, using metaphors, would be blind in his right eye, his spiritual eye, but
Mm.
his left eye would be like a bright shining star. And here you have it on the dollar bill. This was taken by the Mason. This symbol, this pyramid, was taken by the Freemasons from the original black nation of Kemet or Egypt, who used this symbol as a sign of the black god Asaru, or as they call it, Osiris, which is a Greek name. Saru or Cyrus was the all-seeing god in Egypt, which is a sign of the all-seeing god in Egypt. The left eye is a sign of the moon, while the eye on the right is a sign of the sun. That's with the Egyptians, where we see that the Masons only have one eye on their symbol. The eye within the triangle on the back of the dollar bill is called the Eye of Providence. And it was also used by early Christians as a symbol of the Holy Spirit and by the Masons to symbolize the great architect, which for them, the great architect for them is Lucifer or Jabalon, as they call him. Fun fact, did you know that a Freemason known to be Jewish named Benjamin Isaacs of Connecticut, he's the one that is remembered as the designer of the Great Seal of the United States. You can find more about this in a book called The Jews and Masonry in the United States Before 1810 by Samuel Oppenheim. There's also another good book that you can read about American history. It's called A Genealogical History, Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America. And that is by Elizabeth Hetchman and Donald Yates. I recommend that book. There's a lot of great history in there. But as you see, this is not, America's never been a Christian country. Freemasons and Sephardic Jews and Moors started the United States in the colonial period, later taken over by England. Fight a war to get out from under England, so they say. There's some controversy in that as well. But let's look at that 6-point star over the eagle's head, called the Star of David. Now, this 6-pointed star symbol was also used by the Hindus of India as the symbol of the female. That is the triangle pointing downwards, known as Vishnu. And the male is a symbol of the male and the female. So you got the male triangle pointing upwards. That was known as the Mahadeva. Now, the 6-pointed star was used by the Jews and the Royal Ark Masons in the Royal Arch degree. The Star of David on the dollar bill is made up of 13 5-pointed stars above the eagle head, as you see. And the 6-pointed Star of David is also a sign of the 4 elements, known by the Greek word the tetragrammaton. The Greeks used the 4 letters of the Hebrew word for God or Yahweh, and it was written JHVH. And those are the 4 elements are fire, water, air, and earth. Now, the fact that the Jews, quote unquote, self-styled and otherwise, would use Greek words such as synagogue, or which means bringing together for their temple, speaks volumes. That's a history into itself. The truth that Christianity is really a Greek mystery cult, and the Jews took part of the Egyptian and Hebrew religion to form Judaism, and later on, it was the foundation of the Masonic order, which is the order of the Dajjal, or what they call themselves, the Illuminati. America is the seat of power for the Antichrist, and it's been the seat of power since its founding. There's one Masonic order that is very unique to United States, also, brother, and that is the Shriners
Yeah.
Freemason.
Mm-hmm.
That's only unique to United States, and as I said, there's reasons for that because many of the founding fathers were Huguenots, French and otherwise Huguenots, Sephardic Jews, Moors, Conversos, etc. So they have an affinity towards Islam here anyway in the United States. So here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad concerning the Shriners.
The High Masons, they take their flag, take this flag, put it on their coat lapel and on their head, and walk out, celebrate one day a year with wearing this. Why don't he wear it every day? Because it don't belong to him. So therefore, Muhammad, when he permitted the devil to wear the flag of Islam on his head once a day, he's got to be one that has been studying the principle and trying to act on the principle for 35, 40, or 50 years.
That was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from his Theology of Time. Now, if we look at the symbol of the Shriners, or as the great Mahdi called them, the Muslim sons, it is a crescent and star. And it's turned upside down, and you got a Muslim style sword on the top of it. And it's also an Egyptian in the center of the symbol. And that Egyptian is a black man, an Egyptian in the middle of the crescent. So the black man or the so-called Egyptian points to Kemet. And Kemet means the land of the blacks. And it is the original name of the Northeast African nation, now called by the Greek word Egypt. Black is also, there's also another word to symbolize Egypt. The word black or Fahim stands for knowledge and was associated with the order of the Carbonari, or the coal men. Fahim is Arabic, and it has two meanings, black, and it also means wise. So if we look at that Shriner symbol, they're saying that the black man, the symbol of this black man, is a symbol of the wisdom of the original black man, and they call it the black arts. And there's nothing more but the high art of Egypt, or the art of understanding, the high arts of Kemet. The crescent and the star looks like the symbol of Islam turned upside down. And well, the messenger gave us the reason for that. He said that the Prophet Muhammad gave them that symbol to use as a passport so that these people can come and trade amongst the Muslim people in the East. But he had to have this symbol to give him safe passage so he would not be harmed. In fact, as late as the 1800s, no European, no Caucasian, so-called white person could enter Mecca. It wasn't until the British spy Richard Burton, he was the first Westerner to see the Kaaba. He was a spy for Queen Victoria. And he spoke Arabic. He had brown eyes, and he stayed in the desert. He knew the customs. And so he was able to sneak in Mecca and measure the Kaaba. If we look at the symbol of the sword that the Shriners use, that sword stands for justice. And all so-called Shriners must be a Freemason at the level of 33rd. And that is an honorary degree. And he has to, after he had been the member of the 32nd degree, what they call themselves the Sublime Prince or the Royal Secret. He's called a Sublime Prince. That word prince in Arabic or Sahib is also connected to another root for the word black or wise. So they still have a way of praising black people, but yet subjugating black people. So if a Mason is of the York Rite, which is a Christian rite for Christian Masons, so-called, he can be a Shriner at the level of Knights Templar. So do not let any of these people fool you when they say there's no more Knights Templars. They are Knights Templars. I have met a Knights Templar or two in my day. And they're proud to tell you that they're Knights Templars. They were proud to tell you that they are the enemy of Islam. This order came back to Europe after the Crusades. The Templars came into contact with the Sufi order while they were there. So there was a connection as they studied the science of Mecca and that of Egypt and that of Jerusalem at the Dome of the Rock. The black nation are Muslims by nature. And we should not let the Europeans sell original people back what has already belonged to them. Black people, that is your nature. You don't need to join the Masonic order to become a Muslim. And it's a watered down version. The black man is the father and the mothers of civilization. We're not the sons, we are the fathers. And we have been given back our birthright at the coming of the great Mahdi, Master Farad Muhammad. And the sun, moon, and star belongs to the original people, and it's freedom, justice, and equality. There was an article written by Eddie X. Gates that's very informative, and you can find that in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, October 14th, 1966. There's a quote from a good brother. He knew that you did not need Freemasonry to be a Muslim. That was taught by the messenger. So I do not know why today there's so many so-called Muslims who think they can be Masons and Muslims at the same time. You're actually trying to serve two masters. Okay. We, the Black nation in America, are like Hiram Abiff in the Masonic story. Like Hiram Abiff, the Black nation here in Masonic America, because it's not Christian America, it's Masonic America. The black man was hit in the head. He lost the knowledge of self and God. He was hit in the chest. He lost brotherly and sisterly love and the love of self. He was hit in the throat, the loss of his original speech. And then the three Jews, which we could spell Juwes, was Masonics. The three Jews, England, France, and America, placed Hiram or the black nation in the shallow grave in the northwest corner under the rubbish of mental and physical slavery, and they're living in poor areas. But the master came and raised up Hiram using the lion's paw, placing his grip on the joint of Hiram's wrist, where it unites the hand and pull Hiram up out of the grave on the 5 points of fellowship. And if you notice what the 5 points of fellowship are, you see that is a Muslim greeting: foot to foot, knee to knee, breast to breast, hand to back, and mouth to ear. If you notice, that is the way most Muslim men and women greet one another. So Islam was sold back to the black man by degrees in a very watered down form. We don't need to buy what is already yours. You don't need to buy what is already yours by nature and birthright. The Jews, what we say today, the so-called white race, took the Kemetic story of Osiris or Asur, and they changed it to the myth of Hiram Abiff. If you look at the name Hiram, it means noble. If you look at the name Abiff, it is an old French for the lost one. So the black nation in America are the noble lost ones who were lost from our own kind for nearly 400 years in the northwest corner of the world, which they call the United States of America today. And we were buried under the rubbish of a white American civilization until the coming of Allah in person, Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, the Great Mahdi. We also see there's a lot of conflict in the Middle East. We see a lot of problems around the Dome of the Rock in Palestine. There's a lot of violence around the mosque there, and there was a reason for that. This goes all the way back. So if we look at the Freemasons in Palestine, there was a secret order, a special Masonic lodge that was started, and it was called the Quattuor Coronati Lodge or the Four Crown Lodge. And it was founded as a special research lodge by the Grand Master of the Prince, who was the Prince of Wales. His name was King Edward VII. This lodge was started in 1884 and is known as the QC Lodge. Its inauguration speech was entitled Freemasonry as Seen in the Light of the Kabbalah. Now, that's very interesting. The lodge was to focus on Palestine, the Kabbalah, and establishing a Jewish homeland and the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. Sir Charles Warren was the first Grand Master of the QC Lodge. He was also the president of the Palestine Exploration Fund. And 2 decades earlier, he had been the chief engineer for the British excavation at the Temple Mount. There was a Sir Walter Besant, who was a founding member of the QC, and he was the treasurer of the Palestine Exploration Fund under Warren. Besant was the brother-in-law of Annie Besant, who was the president of Theosophical Society after Helena Blavatsky. So you see there was a thread there to take over Palestine, and this went back years. One branch of the lodge was being funded since 1865 with money from the British Crown, the Rothschilds, and the Church of England. The event was commemorated and chaired by the Archbishop of York, who proclaimed that the Holy Land was by divine right English property. Now look at the nerve of these people. We have a letter here to Lord Rothschild, November the 2nd, 1917. And so 31 years later, they came up with the Balfour Declaration, and it was issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War. And it was announcing its support for the establishment of a national homeland for Jewish people, quote unquote, in Palestine. Then, at the time, Palestine was under the rule of the Ottoman, and they had a small, very small population of Jews living in Palestine at the time. But this declaration was contained in a letter dated the 2nd of November, 1917, and it came from the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, to Lord Rothschild, who was the leader of the British Jewish community, and for the transmission to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland. And in the text, it declared that which was published on November the 9th, 1917. And on December the 11th, 1917, the British General Edmund Allenby entered Jerusalem triumphantly through the Jaffa Gate, and the city became an occupied territory under the British. And it was on this historic occasion, Allenby reported, it has declared that, quote, the wars of the Crusades are now complete, end quote. Allenby's statement is a powerful reminder that the British entry into Jerusalem was just a continuation of a successful conclusion to the Crusades. So here you have it. So all this war, bloodshed, and killing around the Temple Mount to really prevent Muslims from praying at the Temple Mount. They want to knock down the Temple Mount, that mosque there, and build, which is the third holiest site in Islam, and they want to rebuild Solomon's temple. It's not a religious Jewish plan. It is a Masonic plan. It is a Zionist plan. It has nothing to do with real Judaism.
Yes.
Because real Jews are not Zionists, and they'll tell you that. Religious Jews are against Zionism.
Yes, that's right. And like the messenger stated, the Freemasons actually fooled the black nation and the general population.
There we have it, brother. So we have all these connections to evil people, like like George Washington. He was a Grand Master of Freemasons in North America, half original, a slave owner, Indian killer. We have to remember, now look at this symbolism. It's the goat, all right? And it's the symbol of fertility.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at a fertility cult, sex magic, and what have you goes on, like I said, in the higher degrees. But you would see here, we have a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad again. I want you to remember at all times that you are not the goat. It is the white man who is the goat. Remember at all times that you are no brother with them. Remember that. Mm-hmm. Now, the symbol of the goat is the symbol that they use in Freemasonry. The Bible states, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. He will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. So, and the Freemasons call themselves goat riders. They call themselves that. They're the goat rider. They ride the goat. That's the left-hand path. Almighty God Allah wants us on the right path, the right-hand side. The sheep, look at the nature of the two animals being used as symbols, sheep and a goat. They look the same. They look similar, but one has a different nature from the other one. The sheep are humble.
Yes.
They need to be led, but they have to have the right shepherd. Okay, the goat, he'll tear up everything, eat up everything.
Yes.
They even have an animal. The Judas goat is used to lead the sheep to slaughter in the slaughterhouse. They put a goat in front of the sheep, and the sheep follow the goat.